In the wake of the long night, after the age of strife had shattered the stars and the unification wars had brought Terra together, the Emperor of Mankind looked beyond. He sought a future where humanity could unite, casting aside the endless conflicts that had torn it apart. With a dream of human dominion across the galaxy, he realized that only unity could protect mankind from chaos, from the alien hordes, and from its own fragile nature. So, the Emperor began to prepare for a greater war. His first act was to forge new armies, built not just from Terran warriors, but from the genetic perfection of the Space Marine legions. These genetically enhanced soldiers would form the backbone of his great crusade, spreading the light of the Imperial truth across the stars, reuniting mankind under one banner. The Great Crusade began in the late 30th millennium. Its purpose was clear: bring the scattered human colonies back under the Imperium's rule, securing humanity's place in the stars. The Emperor's legions were his tools, mighty warriors whose very purpose was to bring unity to a galaxy torn by chaos. To each of his legions, the Emperor granted a special gift, a genetic legacy that molded them into an unmatched force, each legion a tool for a specific task. For the 5th Legion, the Emperor chose a path that would lead them into the unknown, away from the borders of the growing Imperium. They were the pathfinders, always ahead of the others, striking out into uncharted territory. These warriors operated far from the main forces of the Emperor's armies, moving through unknown lands, leaving confusion and death in their wake. The great Jaghatai Khan would soon lead them, shaping the scattered, almost forgotten 5th Legion into something greater, something that would alter the course of destiny itself. In the dark days of the Horus Heresy, the White Scars fought a battle not just against enemies, but against suspicion and doubt. Their loyalty, often questioned by allies, was a burden they carried alone. They were often the first into unknown territories, always operating separately from their brothers, but despite this, they became legends. Known for their speed and independence, the White Scars were ever a step ahead, a solitary force in a galaxy filled with war. The earliest days of the 5th Legion are often overlooked, hidden beneath the dust of time and the Legion's own silence. But in those days, even the shadow of the Legion's future was visible. The 5th Legion was not part of the great conquests on Terra. While other legions stood proudly at the front lines, the 5th Legion was tasked with a quieter role, one of solitude and survival. Their recruits came from the frozen wastes of the Julian Basin, tribes who had learned to survive in the harshest environments during the Age of Strife. From these hardy warriors, the Emperor's pathfinders were born. They were more than just killers. They were survivors, skilled in the art of adaptation, and they were made for the task at hand. The 5th Legion was often alone, operating in the cold corners of Terra. They would strike unseen, attacking hidden enemies, breaking their strongholds, and leaving the path clear for the Emperor's armies to follow. Their work was unnoticed, but their impact was undeniable. They were the first to fight, and the last to be remembered. Far from Terra, in the cold steppe lands of the planet known as Horus, the Emperor's secret son arrived. His gestation capsule landed on a world that was struggling to rise from the ashes of the Age of Strife, a world known to its inhabitants as Jaghatai. Here, Jaghatai Khan, as he would come to be known, was found by a chieftain, Khan, who took the child into his tribe. As the child grew, so did his reputation. He was unlike any other, a warrior of unmatched skill and cruelty. Jaghatai led his tribe in a quest for vengeance, bringing an end to old feuds in a single night. His conquest over the Kura-Yed tribe was brutal and decisive, forever marking him as a leader of great power and merciless will. He became the Khan of Khans, uniting the tribes of the steppe under his banner and bringing an end to the endless cycles of tribal warfare. With his fierce leadership, Jaghatai formed an empire from the wilds of Jaghatai, but his rule was not to last in isolation. Soon, the Emperor of Mankind would come to change his destiny forever. As the Emperor's Great Crusade continued across the galaxy, Jaghatai Khan, having built his empire on Jaghatai, found his world soon to be discovered by the Emperor himself. The Emperor arrived in the 8th century of the 30th millennium, bringing with him the legions of the Imperium. For Jaghatai, this moment marked the end of his rule, but it was not a moment of defeat. The Khan, despite his immense power, had no choice but to kneel before the might of the Emperor. Jaghatai knew the cost of defiance, and he understood that this was not a choice between victory and defeat, but between life under the Emperor's protection or death as an enemy. While some believe Jaghatai submitted without question, his own words tell a different story. He saw the benefits of the Emperor's vision, the promise of unity, and he made his decision accordingly. Jaghatai pledged his loyalty not as a servant, but as a partner in the grand project of the Imperia. Though bound to a new master, Jaghatai's thirst for conquest and leadership would never be quenched. Jaghatai Khan took command of the 5th Legion not as the leader of a united force, but as the master of a scattered, fractured host. His task was not only to lead, but to rebuild, to transform the disparate forces of the White Scars into a unified legion. In the wilds of Jaghatai, the Khan began his work. He called upon his warriors, his brothers scattered across the galaxy, to return and unite. It took nearly a decade for them to answer the call, but when they did, they brought with them the banners of 1,000 worlds, each legionnaire different from the next. It was on the plains of Jaghatai, beneath the watchful eye of their Primarch, that the White Scars were born anew. Through the ritual of the blooding, each warrior marked his skin with scars, the symbols of their loyalty and of their new life under Jaghatai's banner. This was no mere battle for survival. It was a rebirth, a moment where the disparate tribes became something greater than the sum of their parts. Through pain and blood, they forged a unity that would carry them forward, a unity that transcended the old divisions of the past. As they swore oaths to one another, they became the White Scars, bound by loyalty, honor, and the will to fight for each other. The first campaign of the newly unified White Scars was one of difficult trials and harsh battles. Jaghatai Khan led them to the lawless worlds of the Kolarne Circle, where they would face enemies that could not be overcome alone. The Khan knew this was the moment to prove his legion's worth. The Kolarne Circle was a place of no obvious value, but it was here that the White Scars were tested in ways that would bind them together forever. With each victory, the Legion grew stronger, and with each loss, they learned to adapt, to strike faster, harder, and with unyielding fury. In the end, it was not just their victories that defined them, it was the way they fought, like the wind across the plains, swift and unpredictable. Their tactics of hit and run, perfected through years of isolation, proved to be their greatest weapon. And in the end, the Kolarne Circle was theirs, a symbol of their rebirth as a true legion. The White Scars became one of the legends of the Great Crusade, known for their speed and the fury of their attacks. They fought not with the slow discipline of some of their brothers, but with the wild, unrelenting energy of a storm. Though some viewed them as little more than barbaric reavers, the truth was far different. The White Scars were among the most skilled warriors in the Imperium, their tactics of swift strikes and brutal counterattacks unmatched. They were a force of nature, an unstoppable tide of destruction that swept across the stars. And yet, despite their ferocity, they were not without honor. Their laughter, heard often on the battlefield, was not one of madness, but of joy in the fight, in the challenge, in the chase. As Sanguinius once said, "They smile often and laugh when they kill." It was not cruelty they sought, but victory. The White Scars remained outsiders among their brothers, rarely seeking the company of others. They were a tribe unto themselves, but their bond with each other was stronger than any alliance with other legions. The world of Drune was a place of strange and horrific secrets, a world where the White Scars would face an unknown enemy. Alongside the Luna Wolves and Death Guard, they came to liberate the world from an alien threat unlike anything they had ever faced. The Primarchs stood together, but it was the Stormseers of the White Scars who first sensed the presence of the enemy, a psychic influence that tainted the world. At first, the enemy's power was unseen, but soon it became clear. The entire planet was under the grip of a terrible Xenos force. Jaghatai Khan led the charge against the alien invaders, using the powers of his Stormseers to locate the source of the enemy's strength. The battle raged for months, with each victory bringing them closer to the heart of the enemy's stronghold. And in the end, it was the White Scars who broke the Xenos domination, bringing an end to the madness that had plagued Drune for so long. At the heart of the city, they faced the true source of the Xenos power, a great behemoth, a creature of immense strength and psychic might. The Primarchs fought together, their combined might striking at the heart of the beast. Jaghatai Khan, though weary, pressed on, knowing the only way to end the threat was through sacrifice. With a final strike, he pierced the behemoth's heart, but the explosion of energy nearly claimed his life. It was Horus who saved him, pulling him away from the collapsing vortex that would have consumed them all. But the victory came at a cost. The people of Drune, enslaved by the alien force, fell lifeless, their bodies nothing more than empty husks. Though their liberation came at a high price, the Imperium was rid of the threat, and the world of Drune was forever changed. The tale of the Pale Emperor is known to very few. The White Scars speak of it when outsiders make light of their Primarch's prowess in battle. Some say he had a cruel streak hidden behind his smile. But there is truth in the story, a truth that remains constant, no matter which of the Brotherhoods tells it. In the late years of the Great Crusade, the Khan led a force of several Brotherhoods to the edges of the Mandragoran sector. There, they encountered worlds inhabited by a people of ancient Terran descent. The first world they found had prospered, a rare gem at the edge of space. These people, however, did not greet the Khan as a savior. They saw him as an invader and swiftly attacked. Jaghatai, a warrior and statesman, had hoped for peace, yet he was pleased to test his warriors against a worthy foe. His fleet, outnumbering theirs, swiftly destroyed their attackers. The Great Khan's mercy allowed their retreat. After securing orbital space, the Khan ordered a drop onto the barren plains of the world. A battle ensued between the White Scars and the Defenders. The two sides fought fiercely, but the White Scars' speed outmatched their foe. The jet-bike-mounted vanguard of the Khan harried the enemy, exploiting their weaknesses. At the head of the assault, Jaghatai's blade moved faster than the sensors of his enemy's weapons. As the last of the enemy war machines fell, the Khan showed mercy, leaving the city untouched. He chose 3 warriors to carry his words to the Pale Emperor, to offer peaceful submission. But the Pale Emperor's response was scornful. His guards slaughtered the messengers, and the White Scars were forced to take revenge. The Khan razed the city, leaving nothing but ashes in their wake. In the throne room of the Pale Emperor, Jaghatai stood over the fallen ruler, covered in the blood of his enemies. His words were few but pointed. You chose this doom. You forced my hand for the sake of your own pride. I would like to kill you, but I will not. You will remain here, a reminder of the price of pride. Some say the tale ends there, but others speak of a different version. They say the Khan's words were not as merciful. You remind me of my own choices, he would have said, but I will not kill you. You will remain here, so I remember why. We must never again sully our blades with the slaughter of small emperors. Jaghatai's closest bonds among his brothers were with Horus Lupercal of the Luna Wolves and Magnus the Red of the Thousand Suns. With Horus, the Khan shared a love for rapid assault and a deep understanding that made them allies in both war and spirit. Magnus, too, was an outsider, much like Jaghatai. Their relationship was founded on mutual respect and a shared understanding of the greater universe. The White Scars often fought alongside the Luna Wolves. Their tactics blended as they worked together on campaigns, though some found it hard to understand the speed and fluidity of the White Scars' approach. Magnus and the Khan were drawn together by their shared love of knowledge and their understanding of the universe's mysteries. The White Scars, much like the Thousand Suns, valued knowledge and strategy above brute force. But the relationship with other legions was not as harmonious. The Death Guard, under Mortarion, found little common ground with the White Scars. Nor did the Space Wolves. The White Scars were often judged harshly, their tribal marks mistaken for savagery. They were seen as brutish, like the warriors of Fenris, despite their disciplined ways and noble goals. They resented this misunderstanding, yet refused to change their ways. They knew who they were, and that was enough. The rivalry with the Raven Guard ran deep. The assault on Hive Lin Mei, and later the last march on the Sapphire Worlds, fueled this animosity. Most bitter of all was the incident during Operation Kronos, where a Raven Guard chaplain fell to enslaver domination, and the White Scars could do nothing to help. This festering wound left both chapters filled with loathing for one another. The White Scars were the storm that struck unexpectedly in battle, swift and merciless. Their style was lightning fast, moving to where the enemy was weakest, striking with precision. The White Scars were the pathfinders of the Great Crusade, clearing the way for the armies that followed. They hunted down the weak and wore down the strong, ensuring victory was inevitable for the Imperium. Their greatest triumph came during the Ullanor Crusade, where they joined forces with the Ultramarines to strike at the Orc Empire of Overlord Urlak Uruk. The White Scars played a crucial role in bringing down the largest Orc concentration the Imperium had yet encountered. After the victory, Jaghatai Khan watched as Horus Lupergil was named the War Master, a moment that marked the beginning of a new chapter in the Imperium's history. The Khan and Horus shared a bond that had been forged in battle. They understood each other, and their friendship was solidified in the fires of war. But the Khan's path soon diverged. As the triumph of Ullanor came to a close, the White Scars returned to their campaigns, continuing the Great Crusade under Horus's leadership, now a war master. The legend of the White Scars grew through the fires of the Horus Heresy. For over 7 years, they fought on countless worlds, battling against the traitor legions and the forces of chaos. Through it all, Jaghatai Khan remained steadfast. He never once considered betraying the Emperor. The Khan believed deeply in the Emperor's call to reunite humanity, to see it stand together under one ruler, to claim the stars. The White Scars were already engaged in a grueling campaign against the Orcs in the Kondak system when they first heard of the conflict that was brewing within the Imperium. News of the burning of Prospero reached them, of the Space Wolves and their violent clash with the Thousand Suns. But there was confusion. The warp storms had made communication nearly impossible, and the messages were garbled. The White Scars were pulled between conflicting orders and contradictory reports. They were ordered to reinforce the Alpha Legion to bring judgment upon the Space Wolves. But the Khan hesitated. He could not move without more clarity. He would not unleash vengeance until he knew the truth. In the midst of this confusion, Jaghatai received a direct message from Leman Russ, returning from the battle with the Thousand Suns. It was clear that the situation was more complex than anyone had anticipated. The Khan knew he would need to make his decision carefully and with great consideration for the future of the Imperium. The ships of the White Scars were unlike any others in the Imperium. Each legion had its preferences in ship design. Corax wanted stealth, Vulcan demanded durability, and Fulgrim sought beauty. For the White Scars, however, the priority was speed. The Deck Marines of the 5th Legion worked tirelessly, constantly improving the maneuverability and power of their warships. The results were evident in battle. When the Alpha Legion appeared to block their path, the White Scars did not hesitate. Their ships moved with unparalleled speed, a blur of motion that left the Alpha Legion struggling to keep up. The White Scars executed their maneuvers with a precision that caught their enemies off guard. The fleet, faster and more agile than anything the enemy had seen, pressed forward, breaking through the blockade. The Alpha Legion could do little but retreat, outmaneuvered by the White Scars' superior tactics and speed. The White Scars set course for Prospero. They arrived to find the planet dark and silent, its once beautiful surface scarred by the aftermath of the battle with the Space Wolves. The atmosphere was thick with the remnants of destruction. The planet, once a jewel of the galaxy, was now a ruin. The Khan was undeterred, determined to find answers. Unable to make landfall with drop pods, Jaghatai Khan and his Gashik opted to teleport to the surface. They found the capital city of Dizka in ruins. The city, once a beacon of knowledge, was now a ghost of its former self. As they explored, the Khan was confronted by the harsh reality of what had happened to his brothers. The city was empty, and the secrets of the Thousand Suns were lost, hidden beneath the ashes. The Khan's resolve hardened. He would find Magnus, but he feared what he might find. As the White Scars delved deeper into the ruins of Prospero, they encountered strange, ghostly creatures. The Psychnoan, once a blight upon the Thousand Suns world, now roamed freely, feeding off the psychic energy that still lingered in the air. These vile creatures were drawn to the minds of the weak and the wounded. Their presence was terrifying, but the White Scars fought on. Jaghatai Khan, leading his warriors through the ruins, found himself trapped beneath the collapsing city. He was cut off from his Kashik, left to fight the creatures alone. Yet even in the depths of danger, the Khan remained unshaken. The Kashik, always loyal, rallied to their Primarch's side. Together, they fought back the spectral creatures, but they knew they had to move forward. The hunt was far from over. The White Scars, exhausted from their trials on Prospero, found themselves facing a new threat. Mortarion, the Death Lord, Primarch of the Death Guard, emerged from the shadows. He had come to persuade the Khan to join the traitor's cause. The Khan, ever resolute, refused. Mortarion spoke of the new galaxy that Horus would create, one where the strong would be free to rule, unshackled by the Emperor's edicts. But the Khan was not swayed. He saw through his brother's words. Mortarion had always sought power, but the Khan would not be part of his brother's vision. A fierce battle ensued between the two Primarchs, each determined to win, speed against strength. The Khan struck quickly, but Mortarion absorbed each blow, his tenacity unmatched. Yet the Khan's resolve never wavered. The battle raged on, each strike from Mortarion a thunderous impact against the Khan's defenses. The two Primarchs clashed fiercely, neither giving ground. The White Scar's warriors watched in awe as their Khan fought with speed and precision against the unyielding Mortarion. The Death Guard's scythe cleaved through the air, its deadly edge seeking to strike the Khan down. For a moment, it seemed as though the Khan might falter, but he did not. The battle was a test of wills, and Jaghatai Khan's resolve burned brighter than ever. With each exchange, it became clear that the Khan's speed was his greatest strength, though even he could not escape Mortarion's unrelenting force. As the battle between the two Primarchs continued, the Khan was momentarily distracted by the appearance of a familiar figure. Arvida, 1,000 Suns legionary, had come to the Khan's aid. The Khan had seen Arvida's strength, and though he had once doubted the 1,000 Suns, he could not ignore the loyalty of this warrior. Together, they fought their way through the ruins of Prospero, pushing back the relentless creatures that still stalked the city. Arvida, despite his growing mutation, was a valuable ally. Yet, the Khan knew that the price for their victory was steep. As Arvida fought alongside him, he could not ignore the presence of Magnus. The truth was becoming clearer with each passing moment. The Khan had been right all along. The battle between the Khan and Mortarion continued, each blow shaking the very ground beneath them. Despite the ferocity of the fight, the Khan could feel the exhaustion creeping in. He had never before felt such fatigue, but he pressed on. Mortarion, too, was beginning to tire, though his strength seemed endless. The Death Guard's resilience was legendary, and Mortarion proved it once more as he fought with unyielding determination. But the Khan would not be swayed. With one final strike, he delivered a blow that sent Mortarion reeling. But it was not the end of the conflict. Mortarion's escape marked the beginning of a new chapter in the White Scar's journey. The White Scar's internal struggle was far from over. The betrayal by Hasik Noyan Khan, a commander once loyal to the Khan, had left a deep scar. The Noyan Khan's treachery nearly tore the Legion apart, but Jaghatai Khan remained steadfast. His loyalty to his warriors was unwavering, and he would see Hasik punished for his betrayal. In a moment of rage and grief, the Khan struck down Hasik, the blade of his dao sinking deep into his traitorous commander's chest. The betrayal was dealt with, but the Khan's heart was heavy with the weight of the loss. His warriors had fought and bled for him, and now they would face the consequences of their fractured unity. The final confrontation loomed. The White Scars, after months of struggle, had made their way to Terra. They stood with the Imperial Fists and the Blood Angels, ready to defend the Thrawn world from the forces of chaos. The siege of Terra was a brutal, unrelenting battle, but the White Scars played a crucial role in the defense. Jaghatai Khan's lightning-fast raids disrupted the enemy's plans, cutting off their supply lines and forcing them into retreat. With each strike, the White Scars weakened the traitor forces. The battle for the Lion's Gate spaceport was a defining moment where the White Scars reclaimed the spaceport and cut off the traitor forces' access to Terra. The siege was far from over, but the White Scars had delivered a crucial blow to the forces of chaos. Though Jaghatai survived the tumultuous battles of the Horus Heresy, like so many of his brothers, he was cruelly taken from the service of mankind in the years that followed. An event 10,000 years ago, the disappearance of Jaghatai is shrouded in countless legends, many embellished beyond all credibility. The White Scars retain their own accounts, considered by some apocryphal, others historical. One thing is certain: the sons of the Warhawk believe that their gene-sire hunts still, and one day will rejoin them on Jagoris. In the years following the heresy, the White Scars were tasked with securing the Maelstrom, a rift in the warp where many outlaws, renegades, and aliens sought refuge. It was a time of great unrest, and though the Imperium had been torn asunder, the White Scars, under their Khan, led their campaign with unmatched resolve. But even as the Great Khan led his warriors, the shadows of the galaxy seemed to close in. Jaghatai Khan's pursuit of vengeance for his lost people was relentless. The Drukhari, the Dark Eldar, had seized the chaos of the heresy to raid his homeworld of Jagoris, taking slaves and leaving the once proud tribes in terror. His heart burned with hatred, and so, with his forces gathered, the Great Khan turned his wrath upon them. The Yasan sector became a battleground as the White Scars pressed forward, and though the Khan's leadership and strategies proved victorious, the tale of his final hunt would end in the darkest of ways. Even as he sought to reclaim his home, the truth of his disappearance came slowly, one whisper at a time. He chased his quarry across distant worlds, leaving devastation in his wake, until at last his pursuit led him to a confrontation he could not foresee. Thus it is that the White Scars harbor a special hatred for the Drukhari, even their legendary discipline and judgment slipping occasionally when facing these vile foes in battle. No one can say for certain what became of the Great Khan, or if he still hunts his prey through the labyrinthine tunnels of the Webway, where the dark kin of the Eldari lurk in their nightmare subrealities. What remains certain, however, is that the White Scars fight in his name. They destroy the enemies of the Emperor in preparation for the day when the Great Khan will return to lead them again, to continue the hunt and perhaps even begin the next Great Crusade. Ever since the Great Khan's final hunt, a tradition has been passed down among the White Scars. Every quarter century, one battle brother is declared the master of the hunt and charged with tracking down the enemies who have somehow escaped the chapter's retribution. The chaplains preside over the rites of howling, where the names of each nemesis are recounted. In the end, the master of the hunt claims the head of his quarry, and the skull is flensed, masked in silver, and displayed along the road that leads to the palace of Guangzhou. The hunt, it seems, is never over. Though the Great Khan may be lost to them, his sons continue his work, chasing vengeance across the stars. From their first days as tribal huntsmen upon the plains of Horus, the warriors destined to become the White Scars learn the art of the hunt. This natural ability is sharpened through their transhuman training, making them some of the most feared and skilled trackers in the Imperium. Yet not all hunts are the same. Some, like the hunt for the Drugari torturer known as the Shatterling Prince, require the full might of the White Scars. In the early years of the 41st millennium, the Shatterling Prince had hidden himself within the Asmari system, preying on the agri-worlds, poisoning food supplies bound for Imperial fronts, and capturing locals to sell as slaves. Ghashaten Khan, captain of the Third Brotherhood, knew that to catch this elusive foe, they would need to play a careful game. Rather than charging straight in, he chose subtlety, sending small bands of White Scars on covert missions to observe the enemy. Then, when the time was right, Ghashaten led his warriors to strike at the heart of the enemy's raiding party. The Shatterling Prince responded with fury, sending wave upon wave of his followers to defend his domain. But even in the face of these attacks, the White Scars pressed on, their determination unyielding. They fought in the heat of battle, fighting street by street, and while they may not have killed their quarry that day, the hunt for the Shatterling Prince would continue, as it always does for the White Scars. The White Scars, though proud, are never arrogant. They know that the galaxy always has something new to teach them, and they have adapted over the millennia to face threats from all corners of the galaxy. Few threats, however, have been as deadly or unpredictable as the Tyranid hive fleets. These Xenos beasts, driven by a single terrible consciousness, have tested the White Scars' abilities like nothing before. Upon the volcanic world of Horatian Utuk, Kajok Khan, leader of the Second Brotherhood, met High Fleet Hydra in battle. The Tyranids, always hungry for biomass, descended upon the planet, covering it in waves of chitinous bodies. The White Scars, ever the hunters, prepared their strategy with careful precision. They lured the Tyranids into a trap, using the planet's unstable terrain to their advantage. With every firestorm and retreat, the White Scars drew the swarm deeper into the lava-filled fields, knowing full well that victory could not come without sacrifice. When the ground beneath their feet finally gave way, the White Scars launched their final strike. In mere moments, the Tyranid swarm was decimated, consumed by the very planet that had drawn them there. The battle was over, but the war against the Hydra was far from won. The armor of the White Scars rests in a field of white, edged with red that cuts clean and sharp against it. This balance of pale and crimson has endured since the days before the great sundering of the legions, altered only slightly as centuries passed. It feels deliberate, almost ritual in its constancy. Among them, the apothecaries stand apart in deep red plate. Only the backpack, the right shoulder, and the helm remain white, and down the center of that helm a red stripe runs in a straight, unwavering line. The contrast is striking, yet it belongs. Their iconography grows from the tribes of their birth. Jagged lightning bolts break across armor and helm, echoing the scars once carved into flesh beneath the plate. The marks are not decoration alone. they remember something older. Company and squad signs are not shown upon the shoulders as tradition might suggest. Instead, they settle upon knees and greaves, close to the ground they ride across. The red symbol of a squad's roll rests on the right shoulder guard, while the chapter badge claims the left. On the left knee plate, each warrior bears the sign of his squad, and within every company there are 10 squads, each formed of up to 10 warriors, ready to be strengthened by further squads drawn from the reserve companies. The brotherhoods, the companies themselves, are not marked in the manner prescribed elsewhere. Instead, vivid red lightning bolts flash upon the right leg armor of a squad sergeant, a clear and living sign of allegiance. Helmets speak quietly of rank. Bikers often carry Jogorian tribal markings upon theirs. A red helm bearing a skull marks a sergeant, when the red helm is plain and the crux symbol rests on the right shoulder guard. Veteran status is shown. A red helm with skull stud and white stripe tells of a veteran sergeant. Lieutenants wear white helms with a skull stud and a red band, and the captains, known as Khans, bear white skull stud helms and a winged skull upon the right pauldron. The badge of the White Scars is a red thunderbolt, clean and stylized, set before a horizontal bar of yellow. It reflects the speed and force of their way of war, and it mirrors the honor scars carried upon their faces, marks shared by all within the chapter. Even the stout Marines of their brotherhood may wear the thunderbolt upon their shoulder plates, yet there is an old and quiet law among them. The horizontal bar is withheld, reserved only for full initiates, and granted as an honor that must be earned. Mundus Planus, known to its people as Jogoris, lies within the Yasan sector of the Segmentum Ultima. It is a fertile, feudal world of the Imperium, still living in a semi-feudal and pre-industrial state. When Jaghatai Khan left for the Great Crusade, the empire he had forged from the nomadic tribes did not endure. After his departure, the unity he had created dissolved, and the horse tribes returned to their ancient rivalries. Some within the Legion believed this had been his intent. With the tribes once again at war, there would always be strong youths from whom the Legion might draw its neophytes. The White Scars remain shaped by the wild steppes of their world. As with many Space Marine homeworlds, Jagoras is left as it was, because it is in that state that it produces the warriors the chapter requires. Since the time of the Great Khan, the tribes have never truly been united again. They roam as they have for countless generations, following vast herds of gargantuan grazers across the open plains, moving with the rhythm of the seasons. Before the coming of Jaghatai Khan, the people were divided and oppressed by the city dwellers of the Palatine. The young Primarch conquered them, yet he understood that settling his people within those same cities would slowly erode what made them strong. Only one city was allowed to stand. Guangzhou rises high in the Kumkarta Mountains, a glittering palace of marble that serves as a city-sized fortress monastery. Once the ancient palace of the Kaghan, it is now the abode of the White Scars. Within its towering walls, it is said that even a forest thrives, rich with game. The winding valley that leads through the mountains toward its great adamantium gates is lined with the severed heads of defeated foes. Inside, the feasting halls are heavy with trophies gathered from 1,000 battlefields. Guanzhou is the spiritual heart of the chapter, formidable and magnificent in equal measure. Like all fortress monasteries, it is armored and shielded against siege or bombardment. Its walls bristle with heavy ordnance capable of flattening a hive city. Every approach from the air is watched by Icarus patternless cannons, and a mighty macro laser known as Khan's Fury stands ready to strike at enemies descending from the void. The slopes around the fortress hold training grounds and sacred sites. On the sides of Mount Cardon stand long rows of pyre shrines. When a White Scars warrior falls, his brothers strive to return his body to Jaghatai and to Cardoon. There, chaplains perform the rites of Kaldamark, committing the fallen to the flames and granting their souls passage to the eternal heaven. Rising above the fortress is the Librarians, a spire often wrapped in lightning. Here the Librarians, called Stormseers, study their lore and record the deeds of the Khans. They guide the chapter's astropods as psychic messages are sent across the void, linking Jaghatai with the greater Imperium and with brotherhoods hunting far from home. The White Scars keep their distance from the tribes, descending to the steppes only once each decade to observe the wars and choose those worthy to begin the long path toward becoming an initiate. The endless conflict keeps the people strong, yet the chapter must ensure that old feuds do not follow aspirants as they rise through the ranks. Some youths seek another path to notice. They journey into the mountains to pay homage at the tomb of a fallen White Scar. The pilgrimage is perilous, and survival alone is a great deed. If judged worthy, such a pilgrim may earn a place among the aspirants. Those who are chosen carry with them a deep understanding of land and season. It is an instinct born of life on the steppes, and within the enhanced bodies of the Adeptus Astartes it becomes something almost preternatural. Whether racing across desert sands or moving through the tangled glades of a distant death world, they read the earth and air as allies. Even so, many feel unease within entirely manufactured places, such as hive cities or space stations. They long for natural air and open ground, though this is only a preference and never a weakness in battle. In recent times, the servants of chaos have stained Jaghatai after the Red Corsairs invaded just before the birth of the Great Rift. The chapter worked to purge them from the surface. They have achieved much, yet the struggle is not over. The Yasun sector itself has felt the Corsairs' wrath. Some worlds remain in Imperial hands, though battered and bloodied, while Garduli and Saxes have fallen to the traitors. From those strongholds, and from the nearby Maelstrom, heretic voidcraft continue to strike at Jaghatai. Mutant packs gather in the mountains, unrest spreads through the cities, and even demonic incursions are common as the veil between the warp and real space grows thin. Within Guanzhou, Chapter Master Jubal Khan studies the pattern of these attacks and senses a guiding intelligence behind them. He seeks to break it and reclaim the surrounding subsector in the Gagun's name. Yet even with a full chapter at his command, the task before him is vast. Only the Stormseers grasp the full weight of what is at stake. They know that Jogorus shapes its sons long before they don the armor of the White Scars. Its harshness, its beauty, and its vast horizons mold their minds and souls. Even the emptiness of the heavens grants a perspective denied to those raised beneath hive spires or choking factory smoke. If chaos were to change Jogorus forever, the White Scars would change as well, and not for the better. In the earliest days, the Terrans who formed the 5th Legion were known as the Star Hunters. They came from many places, their skin as dark as charred wood or as pale as polished armor, yet they stood together beneath the same banner. During the Great Crusade, aspirants were taken to the training centers of Imamdo on Terra. There they endured selection and harsh conditioning, their bodies tested to learn whether they could become legionaries. Each cadre was claimed by a legion. Those who showed exceptional promise were often chosen by the 16th Legion, the Luna Wolves, though many were reassigned according to the needs of the crusade. Those reassigned were sent onward to Luna, where another long decade of training awaited them. Study, discipline, and further trials shaped them until they were judged worthy. Only then did the deeper transformations begin, gene therapy and psycho-conditioning, and at last the implants that bound them to their new legion. After Jaghatai Khan was found upon Jogorus and gave the legion its new name, the path still began in the Sol system. From there, aspirants were scattered to distant training grounds, a decommissioned battleship above Ullanor, the hard plains of Ayem, the ocean world of Gale 9, or the gas giant Revelet Tyranids. Those who excelled found their Jogorian instructors generous in praise, unlike the harder tutors of the Luna Wolves. The changes they endured were painful. The culture they were expected to embrace was stranger still. They had to learn Gorchin, the language of Jogorus, with its subtle tones and unfamiliar inflections. Even with sharpened minds and perfect recall, their tongues struggled over alien sounds. They studied curved characters and fine marks together, sharing frustration and forging quiet bonds. As the crusade advanced, more aspirants of the Legion were drawn from the Asiatic hive clusters of Terra. Others looked upon this with disapproval, uneasy that the Legion reflected the traits of its distant homeworld so strongly. The White Scars carried customs that seemed archaic to some, guarded and fiercely independent. They valued speed above all things, the first into battle, the first away, movement over stubborn resistance. Where Terra had taught no backward step, the Jogorian masters repeated a different lesson. Withdrawal, then return. Again and again, those words were spoken, shaping instinct and thought. When ascension finally came and an aspirant became a battle brother, his former life was set aside. He took a new name drawn from the myths of the Tulskar tribe or from the almanacs of Gorchin, and in that name he stepped fully into the Legion. In later ages, the gene seed of the White Scars remained stable, and from the Legion came several successor chapters. The Rampagers, the Marauders, the Destroyers, and the Stormlords carried forward the spirit of the ancient Legion and the teachings of the Great Khan, Some among them were known for a fierce edge that could tip toward bloodlust, yet the words of Jaghatai Khan taught that each warrior must confront that savagery and master it. Only through that trial could he truly know himself and serve with honor. On Jaghatai, recruitment followed the rhythm of the steppes. The nomad tribes warred among themselves, keeping their bloodlines strong. From the mountains, white scars would descend to watch these battles openly. Their presence stirred the warriors below, for they fought beneath the gaze of living legends. When the fighting ended, one or several chosen were taken away in silence, vanishing from their tribes unless they returned, one day as observers themselves. Though ancient feuds ran deep among the tribes, the chapter did not erase such memories during implantation, fearing the loss of the very qualities that made a warrior worthy. Instead, brothers from the same tribe were placed in different squads. Mixed together, old grudges faded. Discipline remained absolute. Yet when true grievances arose, they were brought before a Khan, or, if grave enough, the chapter master. His judgment was final. At times, punishment followed, and in the most serious cases, ritual combat settled the matter once and for all. The companies, known as brotherhoods, were slightly smaller than the Codex Astartes prescribed. Each kept a strong reserve of transports and bikes, and every battle brother learned to master them. The sons of Jaghatai were said to be born in the saddle, and they fought most naturally upon swift mounts of steel and engine. In the days of their Primarch, brotherhoods competed for the honor of being named first in the attack. Though that custom faded after the Legion was divided, it still returned when several brotherhoods fought side by side. The chapter master would declare which was first, and the order of assault would follow. The tally of such honors was carefully kept, for to be first was a memory that endured, strong enough to silence old tribal divisions and bind the warriors together as one. The gene seed of the white scars has long been regarded as stable, untouched by obvious mutation, steady in its design. Yet when the blood of the steppes tribesmen of Jaghatai was woven into that legacy, something else seemed to travel with it, a fierce hunger for the clash of war and the open rush of battle. The Khans and the Stormseers speak of unity, of all white scars riding as one beneath the same sky. But even so, old tribal rivalries from Jaghatai are known to surface at times, quietly at first, then sharper even between warriors who share the same squad. There are moments in their history that linger, such as the Red Highway Massacre, when certain brotherhoods pressed far beyond what their mission required, their fury carrying them further than command had intended. No one can say with certainty whether such excess is rooted deep within their genetic inheritance, or whether it grew after the tribes were bound into the Legion's culture. The Adeptus Mechanicus watches with keen interest, eager to uncover the truth. And still, the successor chapters of the White Scars remain fierce and disciplined, living proof of the combat teachings of Jaghatai Khan, their spirit as swift and relentless as the winds of their distant home. The White Scars hold to the vision of their Primarch, honoring the Emperor as the ultimate uniter of mankind, yet never as a god. Faith, for them, does not rest with the imperial creed, and the voices of the ecclesiarchy carry little weight within their ranks. They believe their purpose is clear and steady, to break the enemies of the emperor and prepare the way for a time yet to come. In their quiet certainty, they look toward the day when he will rise from the golden throne and begin a new great crusade to bind the stars together once more. And when that hour arrives, they trust that Jaghatai Khan will return from the void and stand again at the head of his sons. The lightning bolt that marks their armor is more than a badge. It reflects the speed of their warfare and mirrors the honor scars cut into their faces. In that symbol lives the memory of the Stormseers and the power they call upon. They hold it as long as the winds and the land answer the Stormseers. The chapter will not falter. Every warrior bears the long ritual scar upon his face, received when he is fully welcomed as a neophyte. It is a mark of belonging and of endurance. For this reason, they rarely entomb their fallen within dreadnoughts. To be sealed inside cold machinery stands against their belief that a warrior's soul must be free to wander the plains of the afterlife, unbound and unconfined. Across Jaghatai, facial markings are common among the wandering tribes, though less so among settled peoples such as the Kolarne and the Uhan. It is said that the scars from which the white scars draw their name are cut by one's own hand upon entry into the chapter, a custom that reaches back to the days when the Talskar roamed the wide seas of grass. The Talskar are known for extensive modifications that speak of prowess, achievement, and sacred rites. Over time, their pattern of scarification spread across the plains and was taken up by other nations, especially the Helan, the Seshjiak, and the High Zuar, following the conquests of Jaghatai. Many patterns echo the forms of hunting beasts, most notably the native apex raptors known as Burkle. Resin-based dyes are sometimes worked into the scars of prominent figures, blending scar and tattoo into a single vivid mark. Even so, Imperial savants have yet to fully understand the nature of these substances. One variation is especially distinctive, a zigzag mark along the left cheek. Ritual daggers shape the cut beneath the watchful eye of the tribal Zadine Arga, the seer of storms. The scar runs from beneath the eye to the chin, and ash is pressed into the wound to raise and whiten the ridge, giving rise to the name White Scar. When the Legion was reunited with their Primarch during the Great Crusade, the Terran-born warriors adopted these customs swiftly, though the marks upon them were less pronounced. The reason lay in timing, for such scarification proved most effective in youth, before the implantation of the Space Marine progenoid glands and the swift regeneration that followed. The triumphs of the White Scars often unfolded far from watchful eyes. At the distant edges of the Great Crusade, where few lingered to witness what was done in the Emperor's name. Quiet victories marked their passing, and in their wake other legions and armies would advance, treading paths first cleared by riders who had already vanished into the horizon. Their wars were rarely the kind that drew applause. They struck swiftly, like a sudden storm across open ground, then withdrew before the dust had settled. Lightning raids and patient campaigns of hit-and-run warfare wore their enemies down, draining strength and resolve so that another force might later deliver the final blow. For many long ages, Jaghatai Khan and his sons were said to lack the heavy weight of ordnance expected of a true Astartes host. Yet what others named a weakness, they embraced without hesitation. Speed became their shield and movement their blade. Strategic maneuverability guided their campaigns, and flexibility shaped their command. They flowed around brute force rather than meeting it head-on, striking where the foe was thin and retreating before resistance could harden. Some called them unreliable, for they would not give battle except upon ground of their own choosing. But again and again, when defeat seemed certain and hope faltered, the white scars appeared at the heart of the struggle. In the fiercest moments, they arrived laughing, swift and sudden, and from the brink of disaster, they drew victory into their grasp. Across more than 10 millennia of war, the ways of the White Scars have changed little in spirit. Their doctrine still echoes the customs of the Jogorian steppes, where nomadic warrior tribes learned to survive through cunning and speed. Though fierce and untamed in appearance, those warriors were never mindless. They were careful hunters, masters of fieldcraft, patient in preparation, and precise in the strike. Each battle brother carries that heritage within him. He is not a berserker driven by rage, but a sharpened spear cast with purpose. Before a blow is struck, reconnoitering is thorough and plans are laid with care. Contingencies are woven into every design. When the attack comes, it lands with frightening swiftness and measured intent, and then it is gone. Such discipline carried them through the bloodiest hours of the Imperium's history, even to the siege of Terra itself. Through countless campaigns since, they have hunted the Emperor's foes from one edge of the galaxy to the other, blades ready, war cries rising into the void. In the days of the Legion, each brotherhood was a roaming force in its own right, able to carry its warriors swiftly to war. Aerial and contragravity craft were favored above all, especially the smaller vehicles that demanded less care and turned more sharply through the sky. Squadrons of scimitar, shamshir, and falketa patterned jet bikes roared across battlefields, while land speeders and fire raptor gunships carved paths overhead. Even armored vehicles and mobile artillery found their place, batteries shifting position the moment a fire mission was complete. Among the Emperor's legions, none embraced the newer Thunderhawk pattern gunships with greater enthusiasm. These craft, born to replace the vast and ancient Stormbirds, were easier to maintain and easier to shape to the needs of a solitary campaign. By the time of the Kondax campaign, many larger brotherhoods possessed at least one Thunderhawk, and some held enough to bear all their warriors into battle without heavier landing craft. These vessels were more than machines. Along their armored flanks were etched the marks of the fallen, and within their hulls memories lingered like quiet echoes. Each bore a name and a history equal to any veteran of the Legion, and in many circles their fame traveled farther than that of the warriors who guided them through the stars. In the long centuries after the heresy, the teachings of Jaghatai Khan continued to shape the chapter. Their wars remain swift and fluid, built upon sudden strikes that break the enemy piece by piece, while denying any chance for a static and decisive clash. Brotherhoods maintain large numbers of assault bikes and attack bikes, with land speeders racing beside them. Infantry are seldom left to march, instead carried forward by fast-moving vehicles or gunships. It is often said that a white Scar is born in the saddle, and he fights most easily from an armored mount that carries him like the steeds of ancient Horus. Jump-pack-equipped assault squads and inceptors descend to harry and unsettle the foe. When the moment is right and the enemy is weakened, the full assault falls with controlled fury. If drop pods are chosen, the force committed to battle descends together in a single wave, so that no part is left waiting in reserve. Though they prefer distance and movement, they do not shy from close combat, yet there are burdens they would rather avoid. The thought of eternal confinement within a ceramite sarcophagus at the heart of a dreadnought is deeply unwelcome. To be denied the rush of wind and the freedom of motion is a grim fate to them, and many would rather fall in battle than endure such stillness. Heavy weapons common among other chapters are looked upon with reluctance. Heavy bolters, missile launchers, plasma guns, and heavy flamers find little favor, and tanks unable to keep pace are set aside. Devastator squads are absent, and even the few Predator tanks that serve them go without Spunson weapons. Dreadnoughts are rarely fielded, for both practical and spiritual reasons, and the White Scars choose freedom over the slow endurance of iron. They are formidable in rapid assaults and precise strikes aimed at clear objectives, yet without the resilience of heavy weapons or the staying power of heavier battle tanks, their forces can falter if drawn into prolonged and static warfare. Against fortified strongholds or in the grinding patience of a siege, they do not thrive. Among the White Scars there are Psychers, as there are in other chapters of the Adeptus Astartes, yet they do not speak of a Librarius in the usual way. They call their mystics storm seers, keeping to the old Jogorian shamanistic tradition that shaped them long before they walked the stars. These storm seers stand beside the Khans as advisors, their presence quiet but formidable. In battle, they are anything but still. They draw upon the warp with practiced control, and the very elements seem to answer. Winds rise at their gesture, harsh and unrelenting, and forked lightning lashes down from storm-darkened skies to break the foe. Across the Imperium, chapters choose their librarians in different ways. Some take them from their own seed worlds or from their homeworld, as they do with most initiates. Others receive gifted psychers delivered by the Scholastica Psychana. Many follow the ancient strictures of the Codex Astartes when they train and test these chosen few. The White Scars look instead to those initiates who show a gift for what they call the arts of heaven. From these ranks the Storm Seers are chosen, and within their chapter they wield powers that belong to them alone. There is the heart of the Khan, when a Storm Seer reaches into the legacy of Jaghatai Khan and draws forth that legendary swiftness and ferocity. In that moment, he and his battle brothers move with a speed beyond even the superhuman standard of the Adeptus Astartes. There is the spirit of the steppes, a calling to land and air, and to the souls of warriors long dead. A fragment of the harsh climate of Jogorus seems to settle over the field, and the enemy finds the ground and wind turned against them. It is said that while these forces of nature stand with the white scars, victory will follow. When the Stormlance is summoned, lightning becomes a weapon cast in a single blazing line, striking all that lies before it. And when the howling wind is gathered, the fierce gusts of the Jagorian plains surge forward, sweeping the enemy aside. The Stormspeaking Discipline belongs only to the Stormseers of the White Scars. It is a way of war that turns a planetary environment itself into an ally, pressing its weight and fury upon the foe. With blasting gale, a screaming windstorm rises at the Stormseer's will. Those caught within it struggle simply to remain standing, their advance slowed by the relentless force of the air. Through lightning call, he lifts his arms toward roiling storm clouds and draws down strikes of lightning upon his enemies. The sky answers, and the ground shudders beneath the impact. When he chooses to ride the winds, a gravelly chant carries on the air, and unseen currents surge outward to hasten his comrades into battle. They move as if borne forward by invisible hands. At his command, the clouds may descend and coil into a furious vortex, a storm-wreathed mantle swirling around advancing brothers. Lightning dances across their armor and leaps outward to strike those who oppose them. There are also the spirits of Jogorus, terrible figures from tribal folklore made manifest as warp-wrought simulacra. These ancient terrors are loosed upon the foe, a reminder of old fears given shape. And when the eye of the storm is called forth, the Stormseer stands at the center of a hurricane. A screaming cyclone forms around him, and wherever he walks, the enemy are lifted from their feet and dashed aside by elemental fury. The vaults of Guangzhou hold treasures, beautiful weapons, and armor crafted with care and skill. Each blade, its curve intricate with filigree, each cuirass inscribed with history, carries the weight of many tales. Stormseers often tell these tales when the chapter gathers, speaking of each relic's importance, their legends growing with every battle. Among these relics, the banner of the eagle stands out. This ancient symbol of the chapter, tracing its roots back to the birth of the Imperium, is rarely brought into battle, but when it is, the sight of the fluttering banner lifts the spirits of all who see it. At the crown of the banner sits an adamantium eagle, a symbol of the chapter's victory on Golgotha, from which the banner takes its name. The chieftain trophy rack tells another story, one of triumph and pride. Just as the great Khans of Jogorus wore their trophies to show their victories, so too do the White Scars. It is a sign of leadership and accomplishment, and every captain of the chapter bears it. The dueling Dweller is another relic of great importance. Its curved blade, quick and agile, is perfect for close combat, where every flick of the wrist counts. This weapon holds significance, not only as a tool for battle, but as a part of ritual duels. where warriors test their skills in one-on-one combat. Then there is the Glaive of Vengeance, a weapon born from vengeance itself. Wielded once by the great Kublai Khan, it has a history steeped in loss and fury. With its crackling energy field, it cuts through armor with ease, and some say the spirit of Kublai Khan still clings to it, thirsting for revenge. The Guandao is a weapon of signature importance, a Jogorian glaive that has become synonymous with the white scars. Its long shaft and curved blade allow its wielder to strike with precision, often from the back of a vehicle or in close combat to disarm. It is a weapon that extends the reach of the warrior, its purpose to strike from beyond the enemy's grasp. The honor gift is a tradition rooted in the history of Chogoris, a ritual where the spoils of a great hunt or battle are gifted to comrades. It is a practice that binds the warriors together, each gift a symbol of trust and respect. These gifts range from the pelts of great beasts to shards of shattered armor, each piece holding its own story. Among these gifts, the Dorandor belt holds great significance. The Dorandor, a massive herbivore, was the target of long, arduous hunts that required great patience. The belt, clumped and matted, is given to those warriors who have shown the same endurance and fortitude. The fragment of foes defeated is another cherished gift. The shattered remnants of enemy forces' broken armor and vehicles are gathered by the White Scars and given to those who fought in those battles, a reminder of their victories. Lastly, the savage totems, taken from monstrous foes like orcs or Tyranids, are often passed among the White Scars, symbolizing the ferocity of their battles. The talons, fangs, and claws of such creatures are worn by those who have shown the same bloodlust and strength in their own fights. The Hunter's Eye, a bionic eye of great precision, was created to honor the tribes of Chogoris, famed for their horse archers. It allows its wearer to find weak spots in an enemy's defenses, striking with deadly accuracy. It is a tool for both the hunter and the warrior, allowing one to track their prey, no matter the distance. The mantle of the Stormseer, a psychic hood, crackles with energy, wrapping its wearer in the power of the storm. No one knows who crafted this relic, but it is given to the Stormseer, who has shown the greatest skill in communing with the spirits of the storm. When worn, the wearer can unleash the fury of the storm, hurling enemies to their deaths with the force of psychic winds. Mondragon is an ancient Astartes pike, once commissioned for the fourth master of the hunt. This mechanical steed has served many masters over countless years, its powerful engines and bulletproof tires a symbol of the chapter's enduring strength. Mondragon has never failed in the pursuit of its quarry, faithfully carrying its riders through the hunt. Moonfang, an ancient power sword, is another revered relic. Its edge has cleaved through countless foes, including apostates, heretics, and Xenos. Corsaro Khan wields this blade, a weapon whose history is marked by the blood spilled in countless battles. The plume of the Plainsrunner is a talisman woven from the manes of the fastest stallions of the Kamjai tribe. These purebred beasts were said to descend from the ancient herds of Terra, their swiftness inspiring those who wear the talisman to move with the same speed and grace. It is a symbol of the bond between the White Scars and the land of Jaghatai. The scimitar of the Great Khan is a blade steeped in legend, forged in the style of traditional Jaghorian tulwars. It is a weapon that carries the weight of the chapter's history. The intricate filigree along its blade tells the story of their greatest victories, and it is said to have been blessed by the Great Khan during the purging of Tychios. The totem of Jaghatai is a relic of the Stormseers, a long staff adorned with a beast skull and coarse hair. The staff has passed through the hands of many Stormseers, aiding them in focusing their powers and channeling ancient spirits. It has helped them cast their auguries and guide the gods through the millennia. Finally, the Wrath of the Heavens, an assault bike built for speed, serves as a symbol of the Master of the Hunt, constructed to move with the speed of the storm. It can leap over wreckage and strike from unexpected angles. With its powerful engines and graphitic hubs, it has become a fearsome weapon in the hands of its skilled rider. The adamantine mantle drapes the wearer, its flowing cloak woven with threads of braided adamantium. It is a symbol of protection, a symbol of strength. Combined with armor and defensive energy fields, it holds against even the most powerful of blows. Those who wear it stand undeterred, ready for any challenge. Crafted by the finest artificers, the artificer armor shines with ornate details, surpassing even Terminator armor in its protective capabilities. It is more than just armor, it is a statement. When one lays eyes upon it, they know immediately that an honored champion of the Imperium is before them. The Equus pattern bolt pistol, a rare and wild creation, tests the limits of the weapon's machine spirit. Developed by the White Scars Tech Marines, it fires rapid bursts of bolts as its wielder charges into the fray. But it is a weapon that burns hot and fast, its mechanisms quickly succumbing to the strain, leaving it a martyr after only a few short years in battle. Some warriors display head-takers' trophies, the polished skulls of their greatest enemies. These are mounted upon racks on their armor, a symbol of victory. It strikes fear into the hearts of their foes, for they can already see their own severed heads on those gleaming spikes. Then there are the Stormwrath bolts, forged by Jaghorian artificers for the hunt of the Kumkarta Mountains' fearsome predators. Each bolt is etched with acid and carries an alchemical propellant, with explosive cores laced with fulgurite. When they strike, it is like lightning contained within, sparking within the target. And finally, the Cyber Eagle helm. This helm is more than just headgear. It links the wearer to a cybernetically enhanced eagle that soars above the battlefield. Feeding constant streams of data, the eagle provides targeting projections and warnings of nearby threats, keeping the wearer aware and ready. The White Scars fleet, a symbol of strength and honor, has sailed through the ages. During the Great Crusade and Horus Heresy, they commanded mighty vessels. The Swordstorm, a Gloriana-class battleship, was once their flagship, leading the way through the stars. Alongside it, the Lance of Heaven, a Dictatus-class battleship, was a beacon of power and resilience. Its journey through the Kalium Gate marked a turning point, and after the sacrifice of the Swordstorm, it became the new flagship. The lands of heaven, under the command of Jubal Khan, engaged in fierce battles during the Solar War, facing the forces of Ezekiel Abaddon and Sardu Layak. It was a valiant vessel, but in the end it too was destroyed by enemy warships. The White Scar's fleet, though, was vast. Ships like the Bloodline, Celestial, and Fate's Arrow served their cause during the Great Crusade, each carrying its own story of glory and loss. Some vessels, such as the Commonog, had been with the White Scars since their early days, ever faithful to the Legion's cause. Others, like the Namane and the Guawama, became legends in their own right, revered for their unwavering service. The Umal, once belonging to the Death Guard, was captured and renamed, adding to the fleet's legendary strength. As the ages passed, new ships rose to take their place. The Constantius, a battle barge, became the flagship of the White Scars chapter. The Silent Horseman, once known as the Plains Master, was renamed to honor the stealth tactics perfected during the Third War for Armageddon. Jaghatai's Bride was another battle barge, remembered for its victory over a Necron tomb ship in a battle above Jagoris. Throughout the fleet's history, vessels like the Soul Spear, Hawkstar, and Lord of Heavens all played their parts in the Legion's missions, marking their place in the annals of war. The Swift Horseman, once part of the 4th Expeditionary Fleet, was replaced, and the Warrior of the Plains, led by Jorga Khan's Brotherhood, liberated Tefra 7 from Chaos forces. Ships like the Amagine and Galgien served during the Great Crusade, while the Melakarta, once part of the Brotherhood of the Pen and Spear, was boarded by the Death Guard and lost to time. These vessels, whether lost, captured, or still in service, form the heart of the White Scar's legacy, their names etched into the memory of those who fought alongside them. Each ship was more than just a vessel. It was a symbol, a part of the story that shaped the fate of the White Scars. The 5th Legion did not follow the rigid structure laid out by the Emperor in the Principia Bellicosa. Early on, before Jaghatai Khan's return, the Legion was divided into small, autonomous pioneer companies. These groups, each operating independently, were often far from one another, bound by little beyond their shared purpose and the fierce spirit of their Terran recruits. As many as 1,000 legionaries made up each pioneer company, though each was unique with varying specializations and strengths. This arrangement continued for 100 years, and as time went on, resupply became increasingly difficult. When Jaghatai Khan was rediscovered on Jagoris, the Legion was reorganized. By that time, the Legion had grown to about 70,000 warriors, and this number would swell to 95,000 at its peak. The Khan reformed the Legion into larger formations called Hordes, which took the place of the previous independent companies. The new Hordes were mixed, combining veterans from the old pioneer companies and new recruits from Jagoris. 5 were established, though some accounts speak of 7. Their size varied greatly, with the smallest containing as few as 5,000 warriors, and the largest over 20,000. The Horde's commander, the Noyan Khan, wielded great power. These Hordes could shift in size depending on the whims of the Noyan Khan, or even Jaghatai himself, adapting freely to each leader's strategic vision. The this organization reflected both the legacy of the old pioneer companies and the cultural influence of Jaghatai. The White Scar's horde system was flexible, allowing commanders to make the most of their warriors' strengths, though this free-flowing structure sometimes created issues with supply chains and coordination with other legions. The lack of rigid organization led to confusion in battle zones, where White Scar's detachments were often misclassified, resulting in mismatches in logistics. Yet, despite such challenges, their flexibility proved effective, with the White Scars leaving a lasting impression on many battles. The White Scar's use of psychic power also stood apart from that of other legions. The Stormseers, as they were known, wielded subtle psychic abilities that were grounded as much in Jagorian mysticism as they were in Imperial science. Unlike other Psykers who unleashed destructive energy, the Stormseers manipulated the warp to affect the environment, cloaking their warriors in fog, creating winds or storms, and hindering the enemy with hail or downpours. These psychic abilities were invaluable in the field, often shaping the outcomes of battles. However, their role did not sit easily with all. Many saw them as relics of a bygone age, a reminder of the superstitions the Emperor had tried to eradicate. Mortarion, Primarch of the Death Guard, was especially vocal in his disdain for Psykers, and the Stormseers, with their positions of influence, stirred suspicion. Yet, the Stormseers' influence was undeniable. They were regarded as wise, often serving as advisors to the Khans, and their role in battle was critical, even if their abilities were misunderstood or feared by some. Despite their powers, the Stormseers were not seen with the same reverence as other figures within the Legion. Their presence evoked mixed feelings, with some warriors hesitant to embrace the psychic aid they offered. Still, the White Scars accepted their role, knowing that in the ever-shifting tides of war, the subtle power of the Stormseers was often the key to victory. The White Scars Legion's command structure was notably decentralized. While Jaghatai Khan, known as the Kagan, remained the ultimate authority, the Khans of the Horde and the commanders of individual brotherhoods were granted a great deal of autonomy. These Khans often acted independently, managing their forces with little direct intervention from their Primarch. In contrast to other legions, it was uncommon for the White Scars to gather large formations. Instead, the Legion often operated in smaller units, with each brotherhood moving alone across battlefields, sometimes attached to larger legions but maintaining their own command. Even when they joined other legions, the Khans retained control over their warriors, an arrangement that mirrored the legion's independence. The White Scars used few formal ranks. Authority flowed from the Kagan down to the Noyan Khans, and then to the Khans of the Brotherhoods. Each Khan was supported by a council of advisors, and among these, the Stormseers held great influence. In many cases, Khans selected a Kav Khan or first officer to serve as their heir in battle. This officer would assume command should the Khan fall, but the advice of this officer was crucial, with the Kav Khan often guiding the Khan's decisions. The White Scars command structure, with its emphasis on individual leadership and autonomy, allowed each Khan to act as a unique leader. It was a system built around trust and respect, with each warrior in the command chain exercising their authority based on the strength of their character and the respect they earned from their followers. The White Scars were never the largest of the Legiones Astartes. In its earliest days, before the discovery of Jaghatai Khan, the Legion numbered around 80,000 warriors. After his return, this number rose to about 95,000. Though not among the largest legions, the White Scars were highly dispersed, with their warriors spread across the galaxy. Only the Iron Warriors had more of their forces attached to fleets and garrisons than the White Scars. Throughout the Great Crusade and much of the Horus Heresy, the true size of the White Scars was often difficult to determine. Their decentralized nature and the lack of accurate reports made it hard to gauge their strength. Many commanders believed the White Scars to be much larger than they actually were. The Legion's detachments, moving freely across battlefields, often gave the impression of a far greater force than was truly the case. As the Great Crusade drew to a close, the White Scars found themselves scattered across multiple war zones, with only a few brotherhoods gathering together at a time. One of the largest concentrations of the Legion came during the Ullanor Crusade, when several full hordes gathered, but even then, the White Scars remained a legion that preferred mobility over large formations. Despite their smaller numbers, their flexibility and ability to operate independently made them a formidable force, often appearing as if they were everywhere at once. The White Scars of the early Great Crusade were unlike most other legions. They were not a single unified body, but a collection of independent pioneer companies. These companies had little contact with one another and operated in isolation, with each forging its own traditions and customs. As the Great Crusade progressed, these companies often found themselves in need of recruits, and since supply lines were unreliable, they recruited as they traveled. At their height, the White Scars numbered around 80,000 warriors, but they rarely assembled in larger groups. Most often, their detachments operated alone, making their presence in any one war zone seem fleeting. This constant movement made it difficult for other legions to keep track of their numbers. They often faced friction with other legions, especially when they encroached upon territory assigned to others, and this led to disputes, particularly with Varus Manus and Layman Russ. Despite the tensions, the White Scars persisted in their unique way of operating. Their companies, while small in number, were highly effective, with each unit boasting its own specialized roles. One such company was the 731st, known as the Grey Ghosts. This group served as outriders for the Imperial Fists and was tasked with scouting and identifying targets for the fleet. Their role was often subtle, allowing the Imperial Fists to strike decisively. Even with such a small number, the White Scars were a force to be reckoned with, as their highly mobile and effective tactics proved invaluable to the success of the Great Crusade. In the days before the heresy, the White Scars Legion often named their hordes and brotherhoods rather than numbering them. Among the hordes, the Horde of the Stone, commanded by a Sikh Noyan Khan, and the Horde of the Earth, led by Jamulin Noyan Khan, were prominent. These named hordes carried a sense of identity and pride that transcended mere numbers. Similarly, the Brotherhoods of the White Scars were named with great significance. The Brotherhood of the Amber Eagle, the Brotherhood of the Black Axe under Senghor Khan, and the Brotherhood of the Blooded Spear, commanded by Dormo Khan, were among the more renowned. Other brotherhoods, like the Brotherhood of the Blue Hawk and the Brotherhood of the Broken Shield, also carried names that reflected their distinct roles and identities. Each brotherhood was unique, shaped by the Khan that led it. Brotherhoods like the Brotherhood of the Great Eye, led by Nayaka Khan, and the Brotherhood of the Hunter Star under Shohutan became known for their strategic ingenuity and relentless pursuit of victory. The names of these brotherhoods became synonymous with the pride and the spirit of the White Scars, each contributing to the Legion's legacy. Contrary to some beliefs, the White Scars did use dreadnoughts, though they were few in number and rarely seen in battle. Known as the Uhan Solban, or Guardians of the Morning and Evening Stars in the Jogorian tongue, these dreadnoughts held a unique place within the Legion. Unlike others, the White Scars did not revere dreadnoughts as an honor, but saw them as a necessary part of their duty. The Uhan Solban were primarily tasked with guarding the gene seed repositories of the Legion on Jogoris and Terra. Their role was one of eternal vigilance as they remained watchful and silent, allowing their brethren to continue their battle across the stars. These warriors, bound to their dreadnoughts, were both feared and respected by the rest of the Legion. Though they rarely fought, the Uhan Solban would occasionally take to the field, driven by deep, fragmented memories and a longing to fight once more. Their return to battle was always marked by a sense of foreboding, and their presence often foreshadowed great tragedy. During the Kondax campaign, many Uhan Solban answered the call to fight, bringing with them an omen of the battles to come. Outside of the Brotherhoods, the White Scars maintained several auxiliary orders, each serving a different purpose. Among these, the Kara Oglandler, also known as the Dark Sons of Death, were feared warriors tasked with annihilation. These destroyers were deployed when absolute destruction was required, though they were seldom used and only under the command of the Stormseer Council. The Birchdin Serva, or Falcon's Claws, were another small order skilled in hunting and reconnaissance. These warriors excelled at eliminating enemy commanders and acted as scouts on the battlefield. The Karash, formed from volunteers, were a temporary force often tasked with shock assaults. Though the assignments were dangerous, surviving the Karash was considered a mark of skill and honor. The Akog Landler, the Legion's apothecaries, were dedicated to preserving the lives of their brothers, and the Uhan Solban, as mentioned, were guardians of the Legion's gene seed. Each of these orders had a unique role to play, operating with a measure of independence while still loyal to the White Scars' overall mission. The White Scars chapter follows the traditions of the nomadic tribes from their homeworld of Jogoris. Their warriors, chosen from the many feuding tribes of the steppes, learn to be loyal not to their tribe, but to the chapter and to the Emperor of mankind. Just as their Primarch did, recruits from different tribes are mixed into squads, forming tight-knit brotherhoods. These brotherhoods, equivalent to a standard company, are each led by a Khan, a figure much like a company captain in other Space Marine chapters. The White Scars did not always follow the standard Astartes rank structure, and in the days of the Great Crusade, their companies were named after animals, like the Brotherhood of the Hawk or the Brotherhood of the Spear. Those who were born on Terra, however, tended to use more familiar ranks. Even today, the White Scars retain these names, calling their companies brotherhoods, like the Brotherhood of the Moon, which was the Jagorian name for the 64th Company. Their fighting style is all about speed. The White Scars prefer to travel fast, relying on bike squads and land speeders in battle. Their tanks are often lighter than most, their armor stripped away to allow for greater speed and agility. Dreadnoughts are rarely seen among their ranks, as the thought of being confined to the cold metal sarcophagus of a dreadnought fills the White Scars with dread. This is a culture born from the open steppes, where freedom is paramount. The leadership of the White Scars is a carefully arranged council of the chapter's most skilled and dedicated warriors. The Great Khan, currently Jubal, sits at the top, ruling from the fortress at Guangzhou. His closest advisors are the Khans of the Brotherhoods, who gather when a Kurultai, a council of Khans, is called. Alongside them are the representatives of the chapter's Reclusium, led by the fierce Jagoran and the Apothecarian, whose role is critical in ensuring the chapter's survival by maintaining their gene seed. The chapter's greatest warriors form the Geishig, the personal bodyguard of the Great Khan. These veterans are chosen for their skill and loyalty, and their battle armor shines with the pride of their service. The Stormseers, the White Scars Librarians, are the final piece of the command structure. These mystics maintain the chapter's history and perform sacred rites. It is the Stormseers who determine the successor when the Great Khan dies. Only a few have been tested by their mysterious trials to be worthy of the title. The White Scars Armory is a vast and intricate place, built into the mountains below Guangzhou. Inside, the hum of machinery and the glow of forge fires fill the air as tech marines and servitors work tirelessly. The armory is essential to the chapter's success, providing the weapons and vehicles needed for their fast-moving warfare. Tanks, like the repulsor Graf tanks, sit alongside land speeders, ready to be deployed at a moment's notice. The Master of the Forge oversees all. Known as Kumkar, he is a master craftsman who controls his domain with the same authority a tribal leader might command his warriors. His devotion to the chapter is unwavering, and he performs his work with an intensity only rivaled by his focus in battle. The armory is not just a place of work, but a sacred space where the warriors of the chapter's future are shaped. In the era Indomitus, the White Scars still follow the structure laid out by the Codex Astartes, forming 10 companies known as Brotherhoods. Each company is led by a Khan, and the first company, called the Spearpoint Brotherhood, is composed entirely of veterans. These veterans fight alongside the battle companies, made up of the 2nd through 5th companies. The White Scars' tactical style is focused on mobility and rapid strikes, using bikes and other fast vehicles to overwhelm their enemies. The reserve companies, The 6th through 9th are there to reinforce the battle companies as needed, often arriving to fill in gaps created by casualties. The 10th Company, however, is made up of neophytes and Vanguard Space Marines. In the time of the Indomitus Crusade, the White Scars were stretched thin due to an attack by the Red Corsairs, and some of their forces were unable to return home to defend Jogoris due to the fast warp storms caused by the Great Rift. The White Scars have a complex system of ranks and titles. The highest title, Kagan, is reserved for Jaghatai Khan, their Primarch. Below him were once the Nohian Khans, commanders of entire Ordu or divisions. During the Great Crusade, these commanders had great autonomy, leading their forces as they saw fit. Today, the title of Great Khan is given to the Chapter Master, a position earned after passing through trials overseen by the Stormseers. A Khan commands an individual brotherhood, chosen through trials that test their strength, mind, and spirit. The Master of the Hunt, an honorific title given to Gorsaro Khan, is responsible for tracking down and eliminating the enemies of the White Scars who have escaped their grasp. The Stormseers are the White Scars mystics, drawing on ancient traditions of shamanism. They test the future leaders of the chapter and believe their strength comes from the spirits of the land itself. The MG, the chapter's apothecaries, play an essential role in maintaining the health and strength of the White Scars, ensuring they can continue their long and brutal campaigns. The Scarblade Strike Force, led by Gorsaro Khan, is a deadly force that brings the White Scars speed and precision to their enemies. In the Perfectia campaign, the White Scars, with their bikes and fast vehicles, hunted down their prey with unmatched skill. The Tau had become a stubborn foe, one that Gorsaro Khan had vowed to defeat. Even after winning previous battles, the Khan's thirst for revenge against Commander Shadowsun drove him forward. The White Scars army on Perfectia was a storm of lightning speed and relentless power. A core group, the Stormlands Battle Demi Company, led the charge alongside other warriors from the 1st and 10th Companies. Chaplain Jacus inspired them with his fury and passion, leading the charge in battle. Alongside them were Devastator Squad Zog, who brought long-range firepower to bear, and the land speeder Paleclaw, which acted as the scouts for the force. Aerial support was provided by a Stormwing, while the spear-tip strike formation allowed Gorsaro Khan's warriors to strike fast and decisively, circling the enemy and closing in for the kill. Gorsaro Khan himself rode Moondragon, his legendary assault bike, leading the charge with Moonfang in hand. He is a figure of unrelenting determination, focused entirely on his prey. Though his leadership is marked by a deep spirituality and brilliant strategic mind, his warriors follow him with unwavering devotion, ready to charge into battle at his command. As the Great Crusade reached its zenith, the White Scars stood as symbols of unyielding strength and freedom. Under Jaghatai Khan, they had forged a legacy of swift strikes and fierce independence, carving their place among the stars. Yet, with the rise of the Horus Heresy, their loyalty was tested as the galaxy fractured and the unity they had fought for began to crumble. The Emancipation of Drune had been a final testament to their strength, a victory sealed in the blood of both foes and brothers. Yet the victory felt hollow, for the Khan knew that the coming storm would tear the galaxy apart. The bonds of the legions would be tested, and the White Scar's path would no longer be one of simple conquest, but of survival amidst the chaos. With the galaxy on the brink of war, the Khan's legacy remained an enduring symbol of freedom, loyalty, and the price of unity. Even as the storm of betrayal loomed, the White Scars would ride on, their names etched forever in the stars, bound by the blood that had once sealed their fate.